Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Welcome to Q&A with Boelo.
Thank you. Thank you. Pleased to be there.
Yes, this is a talk we are recording about students of English with learning difficulties, and in particular with dyslexia.
Yes.
So we are having this talk because you have just published a guide, and it is a very interesting guide. It is about, I really recommend it, and I will copy the link together with this interview, this Q&A with Boelo. So I have actually a few questions to ask, but I would like you to introduce yourself briefly, if you would like to.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Boelo van der Poel. I'm Dutch by birth, but I've been living in Spain for almost 30 years now, for 29 and a half years. I've always been linked to the language learning industry. I've always loved language learning. I've never taught languages, actually. I've always been more on the administrative and the learning side. I've worked a lot with students, especially students that were struggling. I worked in Spanish language schools, English language schools. And I've always looked at language learning and language teaching from the learner's perspective. So I've also run a school myself for 25 years almost. And in that role as a school director and a school manager, I always discussed with teachers on how to improve the language learning, how to make it more powerful for the students, and looking from the customers, from the students' perspective, you know. And about a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, 7 years ago, I started specializing in language coaching. I did a degree in coaching, emotional intelligence, applied to language learning, and bit by bit, I started getting into the world of dyslexia. It's about 5 years ago. And this is when I noticed the enormous frustration that dyslexic students, children, teenagers, adults, all of them have with learning in general, but most of all, specifically with learning English. So when you interview them and you talk to them about learning, and they say, so what's the worst subject in school? They also, oh my God, English. It was like Beth, that's everybody. And that's when I said, like, oh my God, there must be something out there for these people to help them. So looking for something, I couldn't find anything, to be very honest. I looked for weeks and weeks online. I couldn't find anything. I spoke to dyslexia experts that I knew around Europe, and everybody said, like, no, there's not really anything out there. And that's when, I mean, you know, the aha light bulb moment. And I went like, well, I mean, let's do it myself. And it was actually in the pandemic, more or less, then that I had that moment, because I was into the project for a while, and I went like, okay, well, let's do something for these people, because I could almost feel the utter frustration that they had with the English language. So I started investigating, I started reading, I started trying, talking to people. I conducted loads and loads of interviews with students, with dyslexic students, with dyslexia experts as well. Made sort of our own methodology. We started working with it in private lessons, tried something out, tried something else out, looked with the student what works, what doesn't work, etc. And then bit by bit, well, created a methodology, started working with groups of students, all online, all over Spain. We had students from Latin America, even from Australia and United States, all Spanish speakers. And it worked really well. And this is when I was invited to do like interviews like this, and talks and webinars and conferences. And after these conferences and webinars, teachers would approach me and say, oh my God, this is amazing. This is really cool, because there's so many dyslexic students out there and I don't know how to help them. Can you teach me? And I thought, well, yeah, but it's not really my job right now. I work with students. And that's when I went like, hey, this is a project I should work on, and I should do something for teachers as well, because there's so many dyslexics out there, and they need our help.
Absolutely. And this is how we came to know each other, because me as a teacher, I was also looking for answers, how to help my dyslexic students. And like you said, it is not very it is not very acknowledged that we have dyslexic students in our classrooms,
No, no.
especially in adult education. This is where I belong. But it's all very interesting. You have done a short but very intense journey so far for 5 years. And you suddenly come up with a guide with interesting advice. I have read it carefully, and I have a few questions for you I would like to ask you.
Wonderful. Yes.
And by the way, congratulations on the quote that I really
Thank you.
enjoyed reading. Long live the dyslexic brain.
Yes. Oh no, absolutely. Yes.
I wish we
I
had
truly
more
believe
time,
this.
yes, to discuss
Yeah,
this.
I always say to people, I mean, we're so used to approaching dyslexia from a negative point of view.
Absolutely.
And everybody, I mean, it's a social thing. I mean, there's nobody's really to blame for this. It's normal. So actually, before you ask me the first question, the first thing, my first reaction, whenever I speak to a mother that calls me and says my child is dyslexic or has dyslexia, my first reaction is always congratulations. And then they go like, why? Like why congratulations? They always say like, you have a brilliant mind in your house. The thing is that you don't realize it yet. The child probably realizes it or maybe doesn't realize it yet, but you will see sooner or later how brilliant that mind is. As long as we educators and them family treat that brain accordingly.
Exactly. And we learn how to support them as well.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. I was really surprised to know there are not many fathers getting involved, but maybe you can tell us why. Are there more female dyslexic minds out there?
No, not at all. No. Actually, I was reading up the other day, and initially it was believed that there were more that dyslexia was a male thing, that there were more boys than girls dyslexic, but that's not the case. It's about 50-50. So there, it's nothing. It's no gender specific thing, dyslexia. The fact that I wrote it in the guide, and it's true. I think in all these years, I think I've spoken to one or two fathers, and it's always been a mother thing. But I think it's in general in education. I mean, when I ran the school and we had our students as well, it was usually the mothers who would call for information and stuff. And I feel it, yeah, I mean, it might sound sexist or anything, but I do still believe that it usually is the mothers who take care of the children and who look after their education and stuff. But this also means that when we talk about dyslexia, especially in education, about these things, it is very, very important that we also include the fathers in the discussion, in the conversation. Because what I have seen is that it was, for me, it wasn't very difficult to explain things to the mothers and to explain them that hey, this is going to take time, this is going to take effort, you have to be patient with your child and with us, you know, with the teachers as well. And then many times, and I think it's because of the lack of knowledge or of not being involved, it was if there was a problem or a frustration from the family, it was usually from the father. So it was usually the father who, for not knowing, for not being involved as much in a situation, that got frustrated maybe easier than the mother with the situation. So I always say that whenever we speak, and whenever you as teachers speak to families, although it's the mother, make sure the father gets involved one way or the other as well. It's a whole family thing.
We tend to fear what we don't know. So you do need to know what's happening, and it's not so difficult, is it, when you learn the basics? But what association, is there an association in particular you would dearly recommend parents to refer to?
I would honestly, I mean, I don't know where your audience is from. I mean, I'm in Spain. I know you're in Spain as well. There's I know many associations in Spain, local ones, regional ones, national ones as well. And I would say there's many very good Facebook groups as well. And it's very difficult for me to recommend one or two. I would search around a little bit. I would go on Facebook. I would call your local or regional dyslexia association, talk to them, because they're the people that have the lived experience. They go through what you're going through as well, you know. And I get phone calls very often from association from all over Spain, or emails or WhatsApps, and people say, hey, Boelo, there's a person looking for help here with English, help there with English, and so yeah, no, there's, and I think they're all extremely passionate about what they're doing.
So is this a place where we teachers can also direct to, looking for answers? An association, would you recommend a teacher maybe to contact an association to find skills and strategies to teach their students?
To be honest, I would recommend a teacher to contact me. But
that's the right answer, isn't it?
It is. I mean, for me, it's the most obvious answer. But yeah, no, maybe. I mean, even if they have a certain question, or they want to know something more specific, I would even say, yeah, why not call the local or your regional association? Because I also feel that the associations, they would be very happy to help you. I know that many of them go to schools, they do talks, they reach out to teachers, they try to help people with accommodations. So I would say if it's something dyslexia specific, or maybe could you come over and have a talk, or maybe how do I do this with this student? I mean, by all means, go and talk to your local or regional organization. And if you want something very specific for language teaching, well, if you want, you can call me.
Yeah, that's a good answer. At least we have one one telephone, one phone call we can make. But
exactly.
My next question is, you have already mentioned it. English is one of the most difficult subjects to learn as a second language. It is not a transparent language. And what makes it even harder, and you also mentioned this, how the textbooks are designed makes it even more difficult for a dyslexic mind to follow the lesson. Yeah. So we end up with 4 handicaps. I can count 4. Like, English is not a transparent language. The methodology, the textbooks are not designed for dyslexic minds. And on top of that, we have overcrowded classrooms, and then we have very strict time sets. Yeah. So what, in your opinion, are 3 basics that a school should provide for their teachers with students with dyslexia?
I would say students in general, because I always say whatever works for the 15% of dyslexics in your classroom also works for the 85% other students. My partner, she's a teacher.
As an institution, I mean.
Yeah.
How could we provide for our teachers?
Listen, I would, if an institution, as an institution, I would say, let teachers do their job. You know, I mean, my partner's a teacher as well, and as you said as well, there's a time constraint, and there's big classrooms. But on top of that, there's so much admin going on. There's so much administration. You have to fill out this and fill out that, and blah blah blah, and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, she hardly comes around to creating cool classes, you know. And this is what she wants to do, and this is what you guys, what teachers want to do. We want to create cool classes for our students and be helpful to them. So first, as to a school, I would say, and it's difficult because it's not the school, it's the administration. So to the administration, I would say, rethink the whole system. Get the admin as far away as possible from the teacher. If you can, make smaller groups as well, and if possible, have maybe some extra teachers. I mean, sometimes they do, but more extra help in the classroom. It's very difficult. I know it's very difficult to do something powerful for your dyslexic students with 30 students in the classroom, with the textbook that you've been given and the time constraint. But usually, as easy accommodations, what I can say to teachers is, 1, put the student near to you. So make sure the student sits not very far away. So it's maybe first row, second row, that you can you can have an eye on them and see how they're coping with what they're doing, and if they need some extra help. Don't make them suffer. So for the vast majority of dyslexic students, and we all know that reading is basically the issue, and reading out loud, I mean, that's a complete no-go. So if there's anything to do with reading out loud, I mean, skip that student. Just don't let them read out loud. Maybe try and have them sit next to a student who is very good at English and who is very empathetic and can maybe help that student and explain things a little bit further every now and then. You know, you've got these students that are amazing in class and they're beautiful minds and emotional and stuff. You can say, okay, well, why don't you sit next to this student and you can help each other every now and then, because maybe even the dyslexic student will have some strengths in English as well and can help the other. So it's a buddy system, maybe.
Exactly, yeah.
And I would say with texts, I mean, obviously we can't change the textbooks, but if we hand out texts and if we hand out exams, try to adapt them for the dyslexic student. And most of all, because I heard this as well last year from someone who had a teacher, and the teacher went around the classroom and said, so this is the exam for you, and this is for you, and this is for you because you're special, you know. And so don't make that student feel the special one. Just make them, I mean, you're part of the classroom, and some students wear glasses, others don't. Some have a dyslexic brain, others don't. Some are tall, some are small, some are blonde, some are dark haired. I mean, we're all different, you know. So
No, I think
these are
the
the easiest things that I think you can do.
It is actually a good message that you say, let the teacher do their job. Like, you know, don't make it even harder for the teacher to teach their dyslexic child, because there are constraints from the admin, and we end up in a corner, like, which way can I go? So I think that would be the message I would like to put across. Like, let the teacher do their job, because if you have...
And I would, if I may, I would like to stress to parents, but also to teachers, that it's not it's usually, I'm not going to say always, it's usually not the teacher's fault. And the teachers is not fully to blame for what's happening, or for a lack of accommodations for the child. Because I know that many teachers come to me and say, listen, Boelo, I would really love to work with this student, to give them everything I have, but as we said, I mean, my hands are tight, you know, or at least sort of tight, and it's not always easy.
Well, we have to do something about it, don't you think? We need changes.
we need changes, and I think it's a system that needs to change. But this is, I mean, I don't want to go too much into politics. This is a long-term solution, and I think we all know that long-term solutions and current day politics don't go very well in hand. So I think it's basically it's us, and we have to push it upwards. So I'm really pleased to see so many teachers interested in and downloading the guides that I made from all over the world. Because it shows that people are interested in this.
Yes, I think there's more and more concern and interest in learning difficulties in general, really. In your guide, you say that there is like a spectrum of dyslexic students. So you just said some have more difficulties with reading, others with spelling and writing. And how do you handle that? How do you think a teacher with they call it neurotypical students, right, in the classroom?
Yeah.
How can a teacher with neurotypical students in the classroom and with a dyslexic student with reading difficulties and another dyslexic student with spelling and writing difficulties, what advice can you give to the teacher to handle this? Different types of
first of all,
different types of dyslexic students.
Yeah, dyslexia is a continuum. So there's no, it's almost like obesity, you know. It's not like you're either, so you either weigh 50 or you weigh 60 kilos. No, you can weigh 50, 51, 52, 52 and a half, etc. So it's like weight, it's a continuum, the dyslexia. So it's very difficult also to decide when, from which moment on are you dyslexic, and do I have to give you accommodations. And as you said, there are different sides to accommodation. There's also students that have lateral problems, students that have organization skill problems, etc. I think that many of these students will already have their own coping skills. So it's not, I don't think it's really necessary to do something very specifically different for this student and very specifically different for this student. I think it's an adaptation in general, and they will take what is best for them from that adaptation. And for the dyslexic students, the easiest adaptations, as I said, is adapting your texts. So spacing the text out, changing the font to a sans serif font, to maybe Arial, Verdana, fonts like that, making maybe the size a bit bigger, 12 to 15 size, 12 or 14 size, the spacing between the lines 1.5, so they can focus on what they have to read. Break it down into more paragraphs, maybe less paragraphs per page. Also, when you give examples, when you give exercises to students, don't cramp 20 questions on a page. Maybe do 10 questions a page or 5 questions a page. I know this is not environmentally friendly, because I'm saying use more paper, but in that case, maybe ask them less questions, you know, and try to do it that way. It's trying to make their lives easier. And also, if you have students that have difficulty reading, as I said before, maybe have a student sit next to them and read the question out to them. Make sure that the questions you ask your students are very clear. Don't ask 2 things in the same question, because their mind goes, whoa, what did I have to respond here? This one or that one? Because the dyslexic mind, I always say, the dyslexic mind, it is so prone to drift off and go pathways that we would never expect, you know, and possibly even come up with answers that we are not looking for. But if you step back and look at it, you go like, yeah, it's actually correct what you said, but it's not what I'm looking for. Yeah. And I've seen so many examples already in the past, and funny things of students that have done something, and the teacher said, no, this is not correct. And I look at it, well, I said, actually it is. Yeah. Maybe you put the question the wrong way, you know? So it's getting things very clear and helping your student as well. And especially with students who have spelling difficulties, writing difficulties, when you correct their work, and what you are correcting, or the task you were looking at, was not really about orthography, so it was not really about spelling, and they make a lot of spelling mistakes, don't count them as negative points, or maybe just one, you know, and highlight them, but not in red, maybe in green, so the student knows, like, hey, there was a orthographic error here, spelling mistake there, but I'm not counting them, because I wanted you to talk about your holiday last summer, and you did really well, and you get a 7, and maybe it's a 6.5 because you did make quite some spelling mistakes, but not a 3. Because I've seen many students that actually performed like a rather good content in writing, you know, like write something about your past holidays, and they wrote something like a really nice story, good vocabulary, grammar structures, etc., but because of 8, and sometimes even 8 consistent orthography mistakes, spelling mistakes, they would get a 4 or a 3 on the exam. And there's nothing more disheartening than seeing a student really work hard on something, and because of that failure, and that's their problem, you know, that's their dyslexia. Because of that failure, they fail the test or the exam or the homework or whatever you're doing.
Yeah, because you also mentioned in your guide their self-esteem goes really, really down,
It's
and
horrible.
they need emotional intelligence in their classrooms. They need
Yeah.
support, they need patience, they need understanding. Does this apply to adults as well as children, teenagers, do you think?
Even more. Even more than teenagers and children, I believe. Maybe not all adults, but many of them, yes. I mean, you have to bear in mind that these persons, people, human beings, you know, they were born this way. So it's not that something like, oh my God, I got the fever and all of a sudden I'm dyslexic. No, this is, I'm dyslexic. My brain's like this, and that's just the way it is. It's been all my life. It's going to be all my life. But these people will have started feeling frustration usually about 7-8 years old when they started reading, and it's usually people with at least average, if not above average, intelligence. So it's usually people that are quite smart, that have fast going brains, because the brain can go everywhere and come up with amazing solutions and amazing thoughts and amazing things. But then all of a sudden there's something in their life, in education, which is called text reading, and that gives them a headache, and it's difficult for them. For some, it's like it's small one. You're maybe a little bit slower, like I am, in reading and writing and understanding text, but for others it's much worse than in my case, and that's frustrating. And then when you have people around you saying, oh my God, you're so smart, but you can't even read. What are you, stupid? Are you uninterested? Are you dumb? Are you, and it gets onto you. So you either create your own coping mechanism, and you're lucky if you can do that, and that works on your self-esteem, or this sticks with you for the rest of your life. And that's why for me it's so important that people realize what it is. I mean, it's taken me up until 4 years ago that I realized that I'm a slow reader, and I'm I'm a rather slow writer. So my handwriting, I write very slow when I write, basically because I'm dyslexic. And I used to, and I don't do it anymore, but I used to sweat when I would be in hotels in reception to register, and well, in past days, you would have to write down your name, surname, address, passport number, everything. And I would go, oh my God, this form is going to take me like 10 minutes. And the people I was traveling with would be like, just give it to me, Boelo, I'll do it for you, And it
Yeah.
would make me look so stupid. It would make
Yeah,
me look
but
so stupid. And
you
now I
also
know it's not that I'm stupid. I'm dyslexic. That's it.
exactly you mentioned patience as one of the abilities to cultivate in the environment of dyslexia. And how do you think English language teachers with dyslexic students that go the scenery route, and I would like to read this from your guide, how you describe this going the scenery route in a dyslexic mind. When, for example, we show a student a car and tell them that in English it is a car, a neurotypical student will say, okay. However, it is quite likely that the dyslexic brain will say, okay, but at the same time think, but this is a toy car. So is it the same word? And I see that it is a convertible car. How do you say that in English? Or the brain may even go, I love cars. How long do I have to wait to get my license and be able to drive one myself? So this is what we call the scenery, going the scenery route in the dyslexic brain. I love the
Yeah.
example. So actually we do need to devote time and patience when we have answers and reactions like that
Yeah. Yeah.
in the classroom. How do you cope with that? What strategies do you think a teacher can put into practice to deal?
I honestly think that if you have a student in your class, and you talk about a car, so this is a car, and the student is able to verbalize, is this a car, is a toy, or is it a convertible, or just start thinking about it, I think it's something that we as teachers should make use of. I mean, it's something that we should embrace. because it means that this student is learning, we're entering the student's world and try and get the other students involved in that concept as well. So I think it's more of a positive thing than a negative thing, to be very honest. And this is maybe where we teachers have to be flexible with our students, you know.
Exactly. You also, we have 10 minutes left only, Boelo.
I see.
And I have two questions I'd like you to answer. Like now you're saying, yes, you know, this, it is, it enriches the classroom environment when you have curiosity and questions of all types about a car, you know. But then we mustn't forget that we have very strict time sets, and we have these syllables to complete, and we have the neurotypical students and the dyslexic students in the classroom. So it gets complicated to devote the time to them that they need. And give me an example of how you incorporate this interest of this, what you mentioned in your guide. A dyslexic student will have an interest in something that is a passion, you call it a passion. How do you use this passion of this dyslexic student to explain to him or her a grammatical rule?
I mean,
I'd like you to give me an example, a practical example.
I can. But again, this works for the dyslexic and the neurotypical student. So this works for everybody, and it works brilliantly, because I think that if I try to explain something completely new to you, and I give an example of something that you cannot relate to, so I put this in an example, and you cannot relate to what I'm talking about. It's two things you have to focus on. It's what I'm trying to explain you, so the grammar, and the context I'm putting it into. So if I put it in a context that you are familiar with, that already gives you a little bit of, okay, this is something I can cope with. Now the only thing I have to learn is the grammar. So for instance, and I explain this in my guide, I don't do grammar, I don't explain grammar. Okay, so if I say something completely stupid here, by all means forgive me, it's my dyslexia. But I usually say to teachers, when you explain something grammar to students, first question to the student, how do you draw time? So how do you draw time? How do you visualize time? If you have to draw time, what would it be? Everybody would usually people would say it's a line, drawing a line. Yeah, but maybe people say, well, it's a circle, it's a curved line, whatever. So let's say it's a line, and I say, okay, well, let's draw a line. We draw a line and say, what is now? When is now? And I say, okay, X. This is now. Okay, what's the future? Is it this way or that way? Okay, that way. So we establish their way of seeing time. Okay, it's not my way, it's their way. Their way. This is what I establish first. Then I say, okay, what is the past? Like last weekend, for instance. Okay, here's the past. What did you do over the weekend? I played football. Okay, when did you start playing football? On Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay, write it down here, or make it drawing. Even draw football, draw you playing football, or draw football, whatever. And put a line there. Are you still playing football? No, I'm not in class. So you finished playing football, right? So you started on Saturday at 10, but you're not playing football anymore. No, I'm not playing football. Okay, so when did you finish? At 12. Okay, put a line there at 12 when you finished. So put a line there at 12. And then color the time from 10 to 12. And I establish over and over again, it's something that started in the past and finished in the past on Saturday. And then I say, in English, you say, on Saturday, I played football from 10 to 12. Yeah. And this is how you say it in English. Now, if it had been something different, I did that. If it's been something new, I did that. And I can go around the classroom and say, what did you do on Saturday? I went to see my grandmother. I went to the cinema. I did, and it's getting that grammar, explaining the grammar in the time where it happened in the past, and make it relatable to every individual student. I can make it relatable to every individual student. If a student says, oh, I love, I don't know, Harry Potter, and we have to talk about the past, I can talk about the past and Harry Potter and use Harry Potter, no problem. If it's about the future, I can talk about the future in Harry Potter. You know, I can even use pictures in parts of the book and talking about the past and the future. If it's a student that likes about football, I can talk about football and use those examples in my classes. It's just to, again, for the self-esteem and emotional intelligence, it's to break down the oh, this is boring, this is horrible, and try to make a little bit more fun and relatable to them. Because I think also if it's relatable to them, they can imagine in their head what is happening. Because if you say, imagine you are going to visit a Harry Potter theme park, for instance, they can see that happening. Yeah. If you say
very more visual, that's right.
Exactly. Yeah. And they're very visual learners. They're usually very visual learners. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great example, and I think you can use your personal experience to explain any tense, really, instead of starting with, okay, this is what we call simple past or future. And we only have 3 minutes left, and I would like you to very briefly tell me, how do you think we could assess dyslexic students considering the format of international standardized tests, because they are very strict and not very
the thing is,
flexible.
there are no standardized tests for dyslexia. There are many tests. Each country does it in a different way. In certain countries, even in Spain, each region does it in a different way. So there is no standardized understanding of what this. It's not like with English where you got A1, A2, B1, B2, etc. It doesn't exist. I'm actually working on it with a group of experts to see if we can get this going in Europe, but it doesn't exist yet. The biggest.
Sorry. I think what I mean is, when we are assessing students' their English language, their command
The language. Yeah.
We use standardized tests.
Yeah,
But this
we
is
do.
difficult for a dyslexic mind to fit in the standards.
Yeah.
How can we assess the dyslexic students, their command of the English language?
Well, first of all, if we talk about the official international exams, I'm not going to name names, but there are some that are more academic and that are less dyslexia friendly. There are others that I'm working with as well. I'm speaking to these people that are more task-based. So if it's an exam which is more task-based, of to really show what the student or what the individual can produce in the language, they're more dyslexia friendly. If it's more on how much grammar are you able to produce, how much text are you able to write, so more academic, they're usually a little bit more difficult for these students. It's very difficult. I'm speaking to many of these exam boards. Some of them have accommodations for dyslexic students. Others say they do, but
I'm gonna have to say goodbye.
Not that
Boelo.
much.
I'm sorry.
So, yeah, sorry, no worries.
We're super short of time. Thank you for all your interesting comments and knowledge, and good luck with your guide. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Me too. Hope to see you soon.
Okay. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.